a guy who has been quietly one of the most effective quarterbacks in college football, isn't here anymore. No ninth year for Luke Altmyer at Illinois. Sunny Verma of Locked On Illini is here to discuss. So it's a new era in Champaign, Sunny. What does that era actually look like behind center?
We're all anxious and waiting to see. Katin's a guy who, you're talking about replacing Luke Altmyer, a guy who's going to be playing on Sundays in the future. As you said, Luke was one of the more unheralded quarterbacks over the last couple of years. A guy who Illinois fans, in my argument, is he's the best Illini quarterback of my lifetime. He's right up there when it comes to all the record books. But now things are going to be a little bit different. Obviously, Bret Bielema, they decided to go hard towards the transfer portal. They do have as good of a quarterback room since I remember. You're talking probably since like the early 2000s since the quarterback room has been this good. They've got young talent back there, but I think Bret understands that Illinois can't rebuild anymore. In the modern era of college football with the transfer portal, it's basically you're reloading constantly. And so they eyed Katin Houser, apparently a kid who they've had their eyes on immediately. He was their number one target. They got him, and he plays a little different than Luke. I think he's got more of a gunning arm, and he's not going to win games with his legs like Luke Altmyer is, but he's certainly going to have the weapons here in Champaign next season. So I'm pretty excited to see how he does.
Do you think that his production this year can match what Altmyer gave the Illini over the last couple seasons? Let's just talk throwing the ball here. Do you think he is as capable of a passer?
I mean, they have different strengths, right? Katin's, I think, from what I've seen, more of a deep ball throw, and I think he can connect on those balls better than Luke is going to be able to. It's hard. I don't want to build too high of expectations of Houser just because 30 seconds ago, I just said that, in my opinion, Luke Altmyer was the greatest quarterback that I remember for the Illini. So that can't be the standard necessarily moving forward, but my expectations are he's going to be in the top half of the Big Ten. And if with the running back room that we have, with the wide receivers that we have, I think that's going to be good enough.
Why do you feel so good about that talent around him?
Well, you're just talking about a running backs room. Obviously, you're going to lose Caden Fagan, who's actually going to switch over to be a tight end this season, which was very interesting news. But besides that, you have Khalil Valentine, who's going to be entering his junior year. I think he's going to be mentioned as a potential all Big Ten honorable mention by the end of the year. The kid is electric. Then you have Aiden Lawfrey also coming right behind them. There's not many teams in the country that have a 1-2 combo like that. And then when you think of the wide receiver rooms, you have Colin Dixon, you have Hudson Clement, you're going to have the newcomer Alex Perry. It's just there's a lot of talent, and you have Barry Lundy Jr. still in calling plays for the Illini. And he's, in my opinion, one of the best offensive coordinators, not just in the Big Ten Conference, but in the entire country. Bret trusts him. The system has been working, and the results show it. And so at this point, I don't have any reason to think that things are going to change anytime soon.
Last year, I was very high on the Illini, and it's not as if they had, a Clemson, Penn State level letdown relative to what the expectations were. I, perhaps infamously, now that we have seen the season play out, picked them to win 10 regular season games a year ago. They managed to win 8, and of course still got to win over the SEC in the bowl game. But bowl games only count when people want them to, right? That's the rule. They don't count unless they go the way that certain folks want them to. So I was high on Illinois going into last year, partially because Luke Altmyer was there, and I liked what they had coming back, and I thought they'd had a good season the year prior. What disappointed me the most about the Illini last year, especially with Bret Bielema, who's a very, dig your heels in, hard-nosed, smash mouth sort of guy. Boy, they look soft on defense to me. I mean, there was just not enough physicality at the line of scrimmage. There was not enough physicality really coming from anywhere, I think, compared to what Bret Bielema wants to run there in Champaign. So go opposite Katin Houser for a moment. Is he going to have a defense that can support him better than they supported Luke Altmyer a season ago? Because it felt like at times Altmyer was kind of saving the Illini. You think back to that USC game, for example, one of the best moments of the year for Illinois. And that was a game where Luke Altmyer just kind of out-dueled, had the ball last against Jade Maiava in the USC offense because they had no one to stop Mekhi Lemon or slow him down. They had no one to consistently keep Jade Maiava under pressure. So Do you think that Katin Houser will be well supported on the other side of the ball?
Well, I'll tell you, Spencer, there's one guy who agreed with you, and that's the guy in charge, Bret Bielema. There's a reason that Aaron Henry, who's been the defensive coordinator for the past 3 seasons, is now going to be coaching the secondary in South Bend at Notre Dame. Bret Bielema decided to go completely different. He hired Bobby Hauck, legend, I know on this show, and he's installing something different. Bret Bielema's talked about this in media sessions over the past couple of weeks. He feels like Illinois all of a sudden has become very easy to game plan for, because when he brought in Ryan Walters and this defense, it was a unique defense in the Big Ten Conference. But now, as of this last year, he said the majority of the Big Ten Conference kind of plays the same sort of defense. And so the game planning got easier. They're switching over to a 3-3-5 scheme. How that's going to work out, I don't know. As confident as I am sitting here in front of you telling you that I like what the offense is going to bring next season, I'm not quite as confident when it comes to the defensive side. Obviously, Hauck is a legend when it comes to the game of college football, and I don't think there's many universities out there that have the football knowledge in one locker room that Illinois has between Bret and Bobby Hauck. But, you know, they've been very strategic with their implementing. They've got members of Hauck's former staff in Montana at every level, at the defensive line, linebackers, coaching the secondary. So even though the players aren't necessarily going to be sure of the way you speak and the words, buzzwords or whatnot, the coaching staff is going to be there. And hopefully the teaching transition works. But obviously you're right. Like, something needed to change. The offense constantly had to bail out the defense, not just last year, but even the year before. And Bret Bielema recognized it, and he's hoping that Bobby is going to be the guy to change things around.
I want to bring this back to Katin Houser. Compared to the season Luke Altmyer had a year ago, do you expect him to be in the same range statistically, better, or worse than what he was?
It's hard because Illinois had all 5 offensive linemen returning last year. You had the same running backs room last year, and then you had star wide receivers. This year, you're going to see which wide receivers are going to be able to make the leap. Obviously, there's a lot of talent in that room, but who is, Colin Dixon able to make that jump to being your number 1 this year? I don't think my expectations should be that high, but I don't think they're going to be too far off either. Caden's the guy who I think, especially in particular at the goal line, he's, from the tape I watched, he can absolutely sneak those in and get touchdowns that way. Again, I don't know if he's the short and middle of the field thrower that Luke Altmyer was, but I think you're going to see a lot more bombs. And you know what? Sometimes those are fun to watch too.
Yeah, they definitely are. But when I think of that Illinois offense last year, they had a lot of really effective RPOs, and that's something that I think in that system, if they really want to keep it the same, Houser is going to have to learn to be prolific. It's the old Twitter joke. Get ready to learn blank, buddy, because you're gonna figure this out whether you like it or not. Sunny Verma, Locked On Illini. We always like having him on, and that is it for today's show. I appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.